What happens when a wife runs back to her ex, only to come home a month later begging to fix everything? And what do you do when, at that exact moment, her own sister steps out of your bathroom and calmly says, "Fix what? He chose me already?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ethan Cole, and my wife left me on a Tuesday afternoon like she was closing an app she was bored with. There was no big fight, no flying plates, no screaming. Just Mia standing in our small kitchen with her phone in her hand, suitcase by her feet, and that bright, guilty smile she uses when she has already decided something and wants me to bless it. She said she needed to find herself, and that staying with me felt like pressing pause on her real life. Then she added that Ryan, her ex from high school, understood her in a way I never did. I remember thinking it was funny how these deep realizations always showed up right after he came back to town with his fake big city stories. I asked her if she was sure, if this was really worth throwing a marriage away for some old mixtape memories and a guy who still wears club bracelets at 38. She said it was not about him, it was about her growth. I looked at the suitcase, then at her phone lighting up with his name, and decided growth must be code for new man, old patterns. I did not beg. I just told her if she walked out like that, there was no pause, no, we can always come back and fix it later. She nodded quickly, like she was grateful to hear the rule, then hugged me like a stranger on a long layover and left. Later that night, my sister-in-law Ava called to ask if I was okay. Mia had already sent a long voice note to the family chat about needing space and chasing happiness. Ava sounded tired more than shocked. She said she had seen this movie before, only before it had ended with Ryan cheating on Mia and borrowing money from everyone with a pulse. I told her I guessed they were trying for a remake with worse budgeting. She snorted, then apologized, then asked what I would do now. I said I would go to work, pay my bills, and stop expecting loyalty from people who mistake drama for destiny. Saying it hurt, but it also felt like the first honest sentence I had said about my marriage in a long time. The first few days after Mia left felt strange and too quiet, like the town after tourist season ends and the rides stop moving but the lights still blink. I still went to my job at the condo hotel on the boardwalk, still checked maintenance tickets and scheduled repairs, still handed out keys to couples arguing in whispers. The only real difference was that I no longer had to text anyone if I stayed late. Luis, the front desk guy, noticed before I said anything. He asked where Mia was and why I suddenly said yes to every extra shift. I told him she had gone on a self-discovery field trip with her ex. He winced and said he was sorry, then added that at least I had picked a good time for heartbreak, because winter rates meant plenty of quiet rooms. Later, during a slow night, I sat behind the desk and scrolled through our booking system. I was not looking for anything at first. I just did not feel like staring at the wall. Then I saw Mia's name in the system, attached to a seafront rental we manage across the street. The booking started 2 days before she left and ran through the end of the month. She had used the old joint card we once called ours when we thought we were a team. The note said it was for campaign content, which was her usual excuse when she wanted free space for photos. I printed the receipt for my own records and put it in a folder. On my break, I turned on the big TV in the empty lobby and switched to the app Mia always used to check her social media, still logged in. A notification popped up from Jade, her party friend, with a short video preview. It showed Ryan and Mia on a balcony at that same rental, music loud, her laughing into his chest while he shouted something about finally upgrading from the maintenance guy. The video had been posted to Jade's story for a few minutes before she deleted it, but the preview stayed in the notifications. I paused the screen, took a photo with my phone, and felt something in my chest go very still. There it was, the new life she wanted so badly. Same small town, same cheap balcony, just a different man using my card and my history as his backdrop. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight on the ceiling and the kind of silence you only get when nobody is planning their day around you. The bed felt too big, the condo too neat. Mia used to leave a trail of mugs and hair ties behind her like breadcrumbs. Now the counters were clear, and my only company was the folder on the table with the printed receipt and the balcony screenshot on my phone. I made coffee, watched the steam rise, and called Ava. She picked up fast, like she had been waiting. I told her about the rental Mia had booked with our old card and about the balcony video. Ava was quiet for a second, then said she was going to say something she should have said earlier. She admitted that months ago, before any of this, Ryan had messaged her just to check in and asked small questions that did not feel small. He asked what I made at the condo, if Mia ever complained about money, if our place was in my name. At the time, she blocked him and told herself she was overthinking. Now she just sounded tired. I said it was nice to know I had been discussed as a financial plan before they called it fate. She apologized for not telling me sooner. I told her it would not have changed Mia's taste for chaos, only my schedule. At work, I passed Luis a copy of the rental receipt and asked him to flag any extra charges. He raised an eyebrow, but did not ask questions. A few days later, he slid a new printout across the desk. Room service late at night. Bar tabs charged to the room. A broken lamp listed as guest damage. All of it on the same card. At this rate, he said, they should at least put your name on the door. I laughed once because the other option was throwing the paper at the wall. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled up the bank app. Seeing the balance and the pending charges made something inside me click into place. I had been dumped, insulted, and turned into a walking sponsorship. The least I could do was stop acting like a silent investor. I did not know yet if I wanted revenge, forgiveness, or just distance, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever Mia and Ryan were building out there on the balcony, they would be doing it without my card from now on. A week later, the bank statement came in like a bad postcard from a trip I never agreed to take. More room service, more bar tabs, a late checkout fee. I stared at the list while my coffee went cold and realized Mia and Ryan were treating that rental like an all-inclusive resort where I was the faceless sponsor. I grabbed my jacket and walked to the bank on Main Street. The teller knew me by name, which somehow made the whole thing worse. I told her I needed to cancel the joint card, that my wife and I were separating and I did not want any more shared charges. She nodded with quiet sympathy and clicked through screens. When she handed me the confirmation, she said I was doing the right thing for my future. I liked that phrase better than getting dumped. On my way back, I cut across the boardwalk near the rental. I told myself I was just walking, but my feet aimed right for their balcony. The curtains were open. Ryan was on the phone, pacing, wearing a t-shirt he had taken from my drawer months ago when he crashed on our couch as a friend. Mia sat on the railing, scrolling her phone, looking bored. For a second, I wondered if I was really that easy to replace or if they were just that easy to distract. I almost kept walking, but then Ryan came down to the street to smoke. We ended up face to face by the arcade, because of course we did. He looked surprised, then amused. He said Mia had told him I was taking things well, like losing your wife and your savings was a diet plan. I said I was taking things better now that the card was closed. His smile slipped. He asked what I meant. I told him the rental and tabs were already the last charges. Anything else, he could cover himself, since he was such an upgrade. He stepped closer, shoulder almost hitting mine, tried to stare me down. For a second, I thought he might swing, but a security guard from the arcade walked over and asked if everything was okay. I stepped back and said it was fine. Ryan muttered something about me being petty and stormed off toward the bar. As I watched him go, I realized something simple and ugly. Without my card and my quiet patience, his big romantic escape was just a cheap room with a view, and a guy who never learned how to pay his own way. The first sign that the money had really stopped working was not a call from Mia, it was a call from the condo owner. He was polite, but there is a special tone people use when they are about to tell you something you already suspect. He said he had been charged for excessive cleaning and unreported guests at his rental and wanted to know if I knew anything about it, since my name was still on some of the original forms from when I helped set up his account. I told him my wife had booked the room for a project, but we were now separated and I had closed the card. He sighed and said he had guessed something was wrong when the bar charges suddenly stopped and the guests started leaving earlier. I apologized and promised to cover what was due, but nothing else. When I hung up, I opened Mia's profile on my phone. Her feed had gone quieter. Less laughter, fewer "living my best life" captions. The last post was a blurry sunset from the balcony, 2 nights old, with a caption about storms clearing soon. If she meant weather or finances, I was not sure. That evening, Ava dropped by with takeout and the tight shoulders of someone who had spent the day managing other people's pain at the clinic. We ate on the couch, and I told her about the owner's call. She rolled her eyes and said Mia had already messaged her asking for a small loan until brand money came in. Ava had said no. When I raised an eyebrow, she said she was done paying for her sister's romantic experiments. We sat in quiet for a while, listening to the waves hit the shore and the faint hum of the arcade across the boardwalk. Then she asked if I ever thought about leaving this town. I said I used to, but now I wanted to fix my own life before I tried to move it somewhere else. She laughed softly and said that was the most grown-up sentence anyone had spoken in our family all year. Later, scrolling on my own account, I saw Jade's story flash by for a second before she deleted it. A dark clip of Mia and Ryan arguing on the balcony, his voice raised, her face turned away. The caption read, "If he can't pay the bill, he shouldn't order the circus," with a clown emoji. It did not last long, but I still managed to screenshot the frame where Mia looked less like a woman in love and more like someone realizing the roller coaster did not have brakes. By the end of the week, the town itself told me the money had run out before Mia ever did. Luis called during my shift change, which he almost never does. He said there had been a situation at the rental and asked if I wanted the short version or the long one. I told him to surprise me. He said Ryan had stormed into the lobby complaining that the system was broken because his card kept getting declined. When Luis explained that the old joint card on file was closed and they would need a new payment method, Ryan asked if they could just bill it to the usual account. Luis told him the usual account was mine and that I had already signed off. He said Mia stood behind Ryan during this whole performance, staring at the floor like she was trying to remember when, exactly, growth had started costing so much. After a tense few minutes and some loud whispering, Ryan paid the remaining balance in cash, smaller bills, crumpled, then dragged his suitcase out. Luis watched him get into a ride share alone. Mia stayed in the lobby for a while, scrolling her phone, then walked out in the opposite direction with her suitcase rolling behind her. For what it's worth, Luis added, she looked like someone who just realized the fire exit only leads to another stairwell. That night, Ava came over again with cheap wine and nicer words than I deserved. She kicked off her shoes, dropped onto my couch, and said the clinic had been full of people who hurt in ways they could not name. I told her I knew the feeling. When I mentioned what Luis had seen, her jaw clenched. She said Mia had texted her a few hours earlier asking if she could crash for a bit, because things with Ryan were complicated. Ava had answered that her couch was full and her patients empty. She said it calmly, but her hands shook when she reached for her glass. At one point, she went to the bathroom to wash her face, and for a strange second, seeing her toothbrush lying on my sink from another night, I saw a future that did not involve waiting for Mia's storms anymore. I pushed the thought away. Too fast, too messy, too close to revenge. Still, as Ava left and the door shut behind her, I looked at the quiet hallway and knew 2 things. Ryan had finally learned what no free rides meant, and sooner or later, Mia was going to remember where the most comfortable backup crash site in this town actually was. Mia showed up on a Sunday like it was still her right, not a request. The doorbell cam pinged first, her face small and swollen on my phone screen, suitcase in the corner like a bad recurring joke. I opened the door before she could ring again. She went straight into a speech like she had practiced it in the mirror. Things with Ryan had fallen apart. He was not who she thought he was. She had been confused, hurt, lost. She said she wanted to come home to fix us, to prove we were stronger than a mistake. I let her talk until the words started looping. When she finally asked if we could start again, I told her I was done sponsoring her experiments. For a second, she just stared, like she had misheard. Then she stepped closer, eyes glossy, and whispered that she knew I still loved her, that we had history, that no one knew her like I did. I was about to answer when the bathroom door behind me clicked open. Ava stepped out, hair damp, wearing one of my old shirts. She looked at Mia, then at me, then said very calmly, "Fix what? He chose me already." For a full second, nobody moved. The only sound was the distant arcade music leaking through the windows. Mia's mouth opened and closed without words, which was new. She looked from Ava's wet hair to my shirt on her body and then to my face, like there had to be some mistake the universe would correct if she stared hard enough. She whispered that Ava was just my sister, like that still meant something after everything. I said Ava had been more honest with me in a month than Mia had in a year. Mia's eyes finally filled, not with guilt, but with the realization that the backup plan was gone.